Welcome to the latest episode of AIAP Show and Tell, a behind-the-scenes look at how America's best architectural photographers create their amazing photographs. Today's presentation is by elite architectural photographer, Kyle Wege. Kyle, take it away.
All right, everybody. Thanks to Alan and AIAP for having me. My name's Kyle Wege. I run a photo and video business called Crimson Sun Studios out of Madison, Wisconsin. Today we're looking at a project that I photographed for Smith Group and the construction partner CG Schmidt. And this was for Smith Group's new office in Milwaukee. They designed it themselves, and so they were really proud with how it turned out. As you can see from the gallery here, we shot 10 images over the course of a day. A lot of dark windows, materials, a lot of brick, a lot of wood. So we did do a fair bit of flash to bring this detail back in and to help it not all just be a big muddy mess. So you can see, I'll just kind of quickly scroll through some of these, just kind of what we were dealing with here. I've got a flash kind of pumping into here. I've got a flash this way. This is my assistant, Justin. We're in this little design room here. And this was a complex shot. Again, we've got a light camera left kind of shooting through the door, a light through these windows kind of backlighting some of these people here. We had different takes for each of these people to blend in. I did different levels of polarization to cut reflections and all that kind of stuff. This is the shot that we'll key in, so I won't talk in too much detail about this. This is another one where these little private cubicles were getting some heavy reflections off of this, so we had to do some blocking and some lighting from this side to kind of keep some of those details. Big shot here. We didn't really use much lighting on this. The screens we had to add in post. We were trying to see through here to kind of connect the whole office together, get the front door on this side, and then just how the space is used and how they might have people here. This was a big shot, our most populated image in their kitchenette area. And this, again, was multiple different frames of different people, different areas, how they wanted to include it. This was very collaborative between myself and the client who's on site looking at the images, deciding where we want to have people, how many people was too many people. They wanted to have a few more. And I said, this is already quite a lot. Let's not add much more into this. It's quite full. So this is another shot kind of looking from this more private workspace. We did have some great light coming in through this area. Generally, this is the north side here. So this is afternoon and we're getting some light coming in. But most of the day, we didn't really have any light coming in. So it was a bit difficult to capture these, dark window edges and just get detail everything where it's not just blown out. So here I've got a big 8x8 silk camera right, kind of, blasting light into the hall this way to fill it up a little bit. I've got one larger umbrella diffuse that's pushing this way to give a little bit of light, kind of act like the sun. This shot here, I could have done it a lot easier. You'll notice that there aren't reflections much on this glass. But that's not because I was prepared. That's because I did a shitload of Photoshop work to make it happen. This was right at the end of the day, and we were already, losing time and hitting our timeline. We also did some video this day, as this was their office. They wanted to do some lifestyle video. So we had taken maybe an hour and a half through the course of the day to stop and set up some scenes and just do some B-roll for them. So at the end of the day was, he's my assistant, he's in there, I'm trying to shoot it. I didn't set up a black cloth, which is what I would normally do to kind of kill all these reflections. So that's that. This is our last shot from here. And again, we're just ending a little pop of light to fill in this. They just wanted to show more of the detail from the front entry when people walk in, what they would see and what they would expect. So again, full gallery, in this view, trying to make sure all the colors match, trying to make sure everything looks the same, which is obviously difficult when you're shooting an entire day over the course of a space that's changing with different light and different materials and different colors. I think we did a pretty good job overall making that happen. So I'm going to jump into this shot. We'll talk a little bit about this. I framed this up a little bit wider than what we're seeing here initially. The client and I, we were collaborating back and forth on what we wanted to see, how we were going to capture the image. They originally had me set up more over here, and I wanted to be along this line, kind of viewing this open space. And so then set it up here. You can see I'm a little bit above head height, just so that way we're seeing past these dividers and you're getting a little bit more depth into the room. And then I shifted, a good bit left here. I've got, again, an 8x8 scrim with a light shining through. And then I think I've got the big, it's probably like a 4-foot umbrella parabolic that's diffused right next to it. So basically 2 large light sources, camera left, shooting into the frame this way to just kind of give me a little bit of fill. So that way, again, this wall's not too dark and we're getting a little bit of contrast and interest on the interior. Let me show some layers here. So if we go, this was the first image, and this is what I used for these 2 folks. And all of these people are just folks that worked in the office. Obviously, since Smith Group was the client and this is their office, they prepped everybody on what we were going to do and made sure everybody was on board. We got model releases from everybody. So it was really collaborative and great in that way. But yeah, first shot, you can tell right here, the blinds are down just to try to eliminate some of the backlight so it's not so heavy. We're catching a little bit of reflection here, which does get fixed. This is the frame for this model walking through, blended in separate. And then here you can see I put up a black cloth over this window, which killed the reflection in this spot. And we're just getting some different brackets at this point now with that covered. I've got the light on here. We're getting darker brackets, a little bit brighter, again, just to kind of retain some detail and have some options in post. Now I turn the light off and just get ambient only frames. Just kind of moving through those. These people are actually just working, so we're just capturing them while they're actually working. And then this is our final shot. And so from here, we'll jump into Photoshop and I'll kind of show you how I've layered some of this together. So let's go all the way back to the beginning, huh? Okay, so this is the first shot. Basically, I'll start probably like most people start merging all the layers together. So, there's a couple here that didn't get used, but here's the swap for the middle model. You can tell just up here how flashy it is and how flashy it is down here, directionality from that light. And so I just kind of kill that, bringing some ambient back in. I just think it makes it look more natural. We get better highlights on the ductwork up here, and your eye kind of stays center into the middle, which is where the action is happening. Here's just reflection taken out, kind of killing some of the highlights back here. At this point, we're doing some highlight pulls, and I'm using that darker frame to bring back more shadow detail. Sometimes that shadow detail, this is just too bright, like it's black actually. So you want it to look black. But now to me, it's a bit too dark. So then I put this curves layer on it, just bring back a little bit of life, a little bit of light. This layer didn't get used. This here is just, a little bit of reflection kill on the center, which was distracting to me. Again, just a little bit of highlight detail here, very minimal. This, I don't even know if we ended up using for anything. So that's the merge. And then we'll go into a clone and remove. So essentially, this is the shot straight out. You can see the things that I'm removing, which is just distracting, wall outlets, some stuff under here, that kind of thing. Just more clone stuff to see that you don't want to see, all the reflections that are just a little bit distracting, all these little caps up here just disappear, all the stuff that really doesn't matter. It doesn't talk about the architecture. It doesn't show you anything about what the design intent was. It's just distracting little pimples all across the photo. So we just take them all out. And then I'll do a stamp visible layer. So basically here, I don't really use this for anything other than making future selections, right? So at this point now, DB stands for dodge burn. So we're in a dodge burn layer. I'll do a dark curve and a bright curve, right? So if we bring these up, you can see I'm just pushing in the middle, pulling in the middle, and then I'll do black and then just paint it in. This here is a soft light layer, another dodge and burn if I need it to go on top because the curves, they only get so dark or so bright, so I can push more with this. But I use frequency separation and luminosity masking a lot. So you can see over here, this is Raya Pro 6, and there's multiple tools that people use for this. But this is like a main panel that I'm using all the time in every image. So I'll obviously use this to blend, your brights, your darks, your mids, all the blending stuff that went on in the beginning for the merging happens there. All the curves and brights. I mean, sometimes I'm just hitting an area broadly without making selections, but most of the time I'm selecting a mids. I want to brighten up my mids. I want to add some contrast to the mids. Some darks are too dark, so then I'm boosting that on the brights. And I'm just doing local contrast adjustments that way. So you can just see, again, we're pulling our eyes to the center. I want us to be in here. I want us to see this. Our leading lines push us all this way. So I want the light to kind of guide us with that as well. So from a dodge and burn layer, then I move into color. And we're getting towards the end here. So you can just see with all those layers on, it's minimal, but you notice a difference. It's cleaner. There's less yellows. There's less, blue contrast up in here. A lot of that color cast that's gone. So you can see I do a blue desaturation, a yellow desaturation. Again, these are just hue sat layers, nothing special. Then I do a color paint layer where this is just a blank layer in a color blend mode. And this, you may not even notice, but it's a lot of times just like killing the color casts in the blacks and the darks. Sometimes walls like this can get muddy and ugly depending on what light's coming in. If you're getting green reflections off of trees, or if it's, red color or something like that, and you're getting a highlight come through and it's looking blue, it just doesn't feel right. So I'll do a color paint layer where I just kind of like add that color in, sample it back and fill it in. Photo filter here, I think what I'm doing is I'm warming up the bricks a little bit. Can't really tell, but it looks like I added a little bit of yellow just because some of this was a little faded with the blue color coming in. So I wanted that to just look a little more natural. So this is a shadow desaturation. So again, I'm in here killing all the color, and then I put, this is, let's see if we can bring it up here. This is the mask on the desaturation layer. So this is just shadows that you can tell. And then from here, I'm limiting it to this. So I put it in a group and then I restrict it even more. So now, because of that, there might be color casts more in the shadows. I'm probably catching some of these blues. When you turn that on, it diminishes a little bit. It's just, again, small little tweaks that kind of bring us to the right spot. And you try not to do it too much, because then it looks like garbage. And at the end you go, it looked better when I started. Like, how did I mess it up? I edited it too much. And so my final layers in the color are these color balance. And so again, this is separated between lights and darks. So obviously blurry. I don't want hard edges. This is like an 8-point feather or whatever, 8-pixel feather on these. And so this is just, basically a way to bring everything back together. So you can see in here, I'm targeting midtones and highlights. I pushed my magentas a little bit. I shoot on Nikon and I feel like I get a lot of green in a lot of ways. So I'm trying to reduce that a little bit. My midtones, I wanted to feel less warm in this way. So I brought the blues in just a little bit, those teals. Again, highlights, I wanted to teal them up a little bit to the windows to make that feel right. All the highlights inside were kind of yellow, so just to balance it a little more. This is the darks. So now I'm targeting the lower half, the lower darks there. Didn't do too much, just warmed them up a little bit. Midtones, we didn't really touch. And that's that. So, just a little bit of desaturation and color cleanup and that kind of thing. So then we do another stamp visible layer. This is just to get our final perspective tweak. This is what I sent to the client for review. And at this point of a project, I'll have the gallery together. It's all edited pretty well. Then they get one additional round of revision. So if there's any things they want to change, which for this particular image, they said, hey, can we add, we know that they're working. We know that we can't really see their screens. Can we add something to their screen so it makes it look like they're working? I said, yeah, of course. They sent me 2 images of blueprints that they wanted to add, and then they said just whatever else you can add to the additional screen is fine. So this is essentially what that looks like. These are their blueprints, their floor plans that we added in. And this is an image, to be honest, I just went to Midjourney and typed in, give me a computer screen, like an office screen. And I just cut that out and pasted it in, and, a little bit of blend work. You can't tell what it is. It looks just like somebody's working at their desk. So no big deal. Again, a lot of, you can see all these layers here, a lot of crazy stuff. So this is all just killing color, adding stuff in, making brights a little bit different, all that. Just blending work. It's tedious. You want to make it look natural. You don't want to make it look fake. So all those screens came together, and that's that. You might notice that this final image here is a little darker than what is in Lightroom, right? And a lot of times that's what I'll do. I'm not trying to make the Photoshop image the final image, because I always do gallery blending after the fact. So this now gets saved from here. It goes right directly back into Lightroom, which is what I love about this. So this is the final frame. Then you can see here how I pushed and pulled it, right? We went 0.3 exposure higher, pulled down highlights a little bit, pulled down shadows a little bit. We're basically just making this more contrasty overall. Down here in the curves, again, pushing stuff, making it look just a little bit better. I don't think we did anything really with color because we didn't need to. Sharpening already happened, so that's nothing. Verticals are done, so we're good there. So that's essentially what it is. And then it's just balancing it between, so then I have this shot, and you want to make sure that it resonates with this shot. Are the blues in the sky right? Are the highlights on the wood right? Is the color across everything right? Does the carpet look the same? It changes a little bit here and there, and I try to get it as close as I can, but that's essentially the process. And that was essentially how we went into this shoot overall. Again, it was a full day. We barely got these 10 images and some of the video work done. We shot a couple of other things. I think it was 13 or 14 that we got total, and some of them were more detail shots, things like that the client didn't pick. So after a shoot like this, I'll take, all the images that we shot, not all the layers, but just the best of each one that's a representation, put those on a contact sheet, send them to the client. They then will review and give me their selections, and then we edit and deliver those. And a lot of times clients will mark that up and give me some retouching notes there. This client didn't do that right away. They like to do it kind of at the end after they see everything is done, which is fine, because a lot of times they're telling me things that I'm going to do anyways, like, hey, remove this, fire extinguisher, remove this outlet, or remove these kinds of little things. Like, you don't have to tell me that. I'm going to take those out. More so it would be, if you don't want them taken out, tell me that, because I'm probably going to. And sometimes that's what's important to show for a client. And that just goes to the value of communication and how you're talking with your client and figuring out what is valuable and what's the story they want to tell. I think that stuff is important, because you might end up removing something or not removing something that needs to be there or doesn't need to be there. So I'll quickly, last bit, just talk about how we put these people here. All these spaces are open. I don't know that any of these are like dedicated desks. They might have places they prefer to work, but this is like an open collaborative area. So we wanted to show people in this center area where this is open collaboration. They'll put plans here. We shot lifestyle stuff here, like some video work of them with blueprints and drawing and talking. So that's why we put these folks here. Obviously, I wanted to have just a little bit of interest in the center, and I thought having her walking with a little bit of motion blur was really nice. We put people here. Originally, he was sitting, and I said, let's raise him up, right? These are stand desks, so it's cool to kind of show that functionality. And also, you just start to get lost if you're sitting behind this barrier. So gives a little bit of interest. It kind of flows through like this. I think overall our people, we've got this line that kind of moves all the way through the center of the frame, with the action kind of ending, in my opinion, with this gentleman moving into the doorway. And we shot this with flash on, so you can maybe tell that some of it, you catch a little bit of this sharpness from the flash, but then you retain some of that blur. So it's a nice effect that you can use sometimes if you're trying to get a little bit of motion blur with not as much ghostiness. Obviously, watch your shutter speed, but it's a fun effect too. So we get the motion of the door, which I absolutely love, the little bit of the foot, and then this side of his body is all crisp. So just a little bit of suggestion there on what might be happening in the office. But overall, that's the shot, and we can open it up for questions or feedback or whatever.
Really amazing, first of all, Kyle.
Thank you.
I have two questions that are related.
Okay.
One, the space might have, say, light blue and light yellow or whatever colors, and you can make it look realistic just the way they designed it. And you can also sometimes add your own color, just enhance the color a little bit, and the space actually looks nicer. And I'm just wondering, do you talk to the client at all about, or is it just assumed that every client wants it to look exactly the way it looks in reality, as opposed to jazzed up a little bit with what you can do in Photoshop? That's the one thing. And then the related question is just plain, I've actually had clients come to me with work from real good photographers that was real soft and real muted kind of images, and they don't like them, and they come to me and say, "No, what's wrong with this? I paid all this money for this and everything." I said, "It's just the way that the photographer edited it. He could have made it crisp and and more colorful if that's what you wanted. But if you look at his website, you see that everything he does is real soft and muted. So what were you expecting?" And I've just taken photos like that and I've sharpened them up and put more color because that's more my style. And I've had clients go, "Wow, well, that's what I wanted." So how do you communicate with your client before you get going on this of what it is they want? Or you just assume they want what your website looks like?
Yeah, those are great questions. So I'll start with the second. If you're hiring me, most of the time people are reaching out to me and say, "Hey, we like your work. We're interested what it might look like to have you photograph this project." I'm assuming you've looked at my work. I'm assuming you want to work with me because of my work, and you're not guessing on what I do. So that's part of it. Most of the time, when I start onboarding with a client, if this is the first project that I'm shooting for them, we're doing a Zoom conversation. We're looking at blueprints. We're looking at fly-throughs of the building. We're talking about that kind of stuff. But a lot of the times it's not stylistic on how I'm going to shoot it. Like, to me, that's just known, right? And it's bitten me a little bit in the past, not really for photos, but more so for video. Earlier this year, I had a client who wanted to bring me on for retainer work to shoot some residential stuff. And they wanted photo and video for each project. We shot it. Everything was great for the photos. They loved it. The video, I'm on a gimbal and I'm shooting with a nice camera and it all looks really great. They came back to me saying, "Ooh, we actually wanted more like influencer style, vertical, like cell phone video." And I said, "Oh, well, maybe I should have asked about that at the beginning. That would have been good information to know. But I'm curious, where do you see that on my website? Like, how do you figure that was something that I was going to provide to you? Because if you look at the video section on my website, it's all polished. It's all high end. It's all, it's to match the quality of the photo that I'm delivering." And they went, "Oh, yeah, I guess we don't really see that." And that was kind of the end. They didn't want to work with me after that. So it was like, all right, well, I don't want to shoot influencer video. That's not what I want to spend my time doing. I don't want to pull out my cell phone and that's what I shoot for you. And then my name goes on it. It's just not what I'm interested in. So no problems there, but that's all part of the conversation, I guess. If they're reaching out to me, I assume they know my work. If I'm reaching out to them, I'm sharing stuff. Like, I'm being intentional about what I'm showing them, pertaining to what kind of projects they do, what type of design work and what kind of clients they seem to have. I'm presenting that stuff so they can see, oh, this is how he shoots. This is how he would shoot our projects. Sometimes I'm even trying to shoot some of their projects just on spec that I can share. Hey, look how I photographed it. It might be different than what you did, or what your other photographer did. So that's generally my approach to that. Your first question about how to approach color and how to make that look certain ways and what the client might want, what you might want. These are all generally conversations that are happening on site while we're shooting everything. And pretty much everybody I know shoots tethered one way or another. So that's either into a laptop or using Cam Ranger, being wireless. I like to use the Cam Ranger to an iPad because for me, I'm moving. I'm also my assistant with my assistant. So I want to be able to see stuff while I'm doing it. I want to be able to look, in live view while I'm moving chairs and talking to people. And it's easier to just show them wherever we are from that iPad. So while we're shooting stuff, if the blues are looking a little warm or if the color's falling off in some area, I'm pointing out in real time, okay, so this is what I'll fix in post. You're seeing this distracting thing here, this kind of reflection that we're catching here, that's going to be gone. We got a layer that'll be taken out. I'm going to make this color look uniform through here. I'm going to make these screens look black, like we're catching a little bit of haze here. That'll all be brought in and it'll be more to life of what you see. So generally it's just kind of walking them through it on site, because almost all my photos, unless if I'm shooting a small room where I can light and everything is great in one shot, I'm always blending in the ways that I just showed you guys.
Alan was saying, 10 to 15, 15 shots is a lot. You're doing that and video. How, besides the quantity, like, how are you able to, I guess, change gears? Not just like with yourself, but you're also interacting with the client too, right? And you're being conscious of the time. So, like, how do you negotiate that? And then, how does, I guess, does your assistant, I guess, play a role in, I guess, that transition?
Yeah, a little bit. So my assistant on this shoot is my primary assistant. He's also a videographer who runs his own videography business. And so he and I work together a lot in that way. On this particular shoot, I didn't have him shoot. That was the backup plan if we were falling behind on time. I have a second setup basically. So I shoot Nikon. My primary camera is a Z8. So all my photos get shot on there because they're higher resolution. I do a lot of video from that too because, shoots really great. It shoots 8K raw internal if I want it to. That's usually overkill for my clients. But my second camera is a Nikon ZF, which is lower resolution, but still shoots the same quality video. So I'll have those two set up, right? So I'll have my primary photo camera and then I'll have my primary video camera. And that video camera is on a Ronin set up, ready to go. And depending on what the time of day is and how we're moving for this particular shoot, video was an add-on. So they hired me. We had everything set, contract, cost share between the two clients with photos for 10 selects that they wanted. And then like a week or two after that, they said, hey, we noticed that you also do video. Could we add that in? And I said, yeah, that's fine. Since the cost share isn't going to apply to that, the construction company is not necessarily going to want your lifestyle video. We'll just do that as a separate thing, which we did, worked it out. And again, it was just basically providing them, a certain number of clips, B-roll that were color corrected and ready for them to use. So when we're on production, basically, my assistant's helping me. We're working through the time. I'm talking with the clients about what we want to shoot for both things. So we're trying to set up where we're going to go and how we're going to move through the space, where the lighting might be at a certain time of day and where we want to target and key in for certain shots at certain times. So that might leave us some gaps to shoot video. And for this kind of thing, since this is the client's office, they knew what they were looking for. So they said, we're gonna set up a design charrette in that black box space there. We're gonna get some video of that. Again, spent maybe 15 minutes, and it's just light direction of, hey, okay, you guys are working. I'm gonna get some shots of your hands. So let's do some points. Let's do some outlines. And that's just, we're not catching audio. We're not including that because it's not meant to be that portion. So I can direct while I'm filming and while I'm moving. So that's trying to be quick, trying to get a bunch of different clips. We might then pause and set up for this shot. And then once this is done, maybe we would do some video in this section where it's like, cool, let's set up some people in this middle section. Let's get some blueprints. We just want 2 people. And again, it's just you guys work and you're talking. And a lot of times they're actually doing work, which is what I want. Like if they're not models, I don't want you to pretend to be a model. I want you to do the thing you do, right? So if you're an architect or you're a designer and you're here and the point is for us to capture you looking like an architect or designer, just talk about real shit, like do your actual job and it's going to look real on camera. And so that was what I was giving them. Pretend I'm not here, pretend I'm nothing. Don't pay attention to me at all. Just do the work. And then I'm keying in and I'm moving. And if I need them to do things here or there, I'll say, hey, just step back a little bit. Or can you open up this way to the camera a little bit and then talk? And I really liked what you were doing there. Like, do that again or go over that section again. And so it's really just a lot of, on the fly, that kind of thing, working through what's looking good, what are we capturing, where's the light coming from. But it can be a little chaotic. And if the client wanted me to do like more comprehensive video, we would have separated it out into two separate productions where we could have focused on one and then the other. But since it was like, hey, we just want like 15 B-roll clips of lifestyle, it's not like set up architecture. We don't need to have certain movement and motion in certain ways. I'm not producing a 1 to 2 minute feature about their space or anything. We could shoot it in that way.
So I got a question about the video, which is uh, a bit of confusion for me. So there's finished pieces and then there's just footage. So I kind of go back and forth on charging by the minute for finished pieces, which is fairly standard, but that includes sound, it's edited, it's a piece. But just clips, I go for, you get so many clips, not to exceed more than 3 minutes or something like this for this amount of money. How do you figure this kind of, because it sounds like what you're talking about here is B-roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've gone back and forth on it a few different ways on how I like to approach it. So for this particular client, all they wanted was B-roll clips, and they don't need audio. These are basically going to be, banners on their website or certain, things that they might post on social media, stuff like that. And so I asked them, how many clips are you thinking? How much would you actually like? They gave me that number, and generally I'll charge per clip, same way that I do per photo. So I come up with, how much time is it going to take me overall? Let's say if we have 10 clips or if we have 15 clips, to bring those into Premiere, to do a little cut down, because obviously the whole clip isn't going to be useful and I want to just present them the thing that's going to be valuable. So doing cut downs on those, color correcting, doing exposure, and then exporting everything out and kind of labeling it, how much time is that going to take? Maybe 30 to 40 minutes a clip, depending. I give them up to 30 seconds per clip, but to be honest, I'm pretty flexible. Like if the clip in itself is 40 seconds and it's great, I don't really care. Go ahead and take it. It's fine. But that's been my approach to it. If they want like a lot of them, I might just give them like a flat rate. If they say like, oh, we want just as many as you can give us, like, okay, cool. Well, it's going to be this much for each clip. But if we're talking about 30 or 40 clips, I'll give you a flat rate that's a better price because I can probably do it more efficiently. Once I'm in there and I'm cutting stuff down, I can copy the, kind of do batch edits across the color if we're all in the same area. So doing more doesn't necessarily take the exact same time for each one. I can kind of start getting more efficient in the process. So for this, I did give them a flat rate because they were like, yeah, as many as you can shoot, as many as you want to give us is what we'll take. So that was kind of the arrangement on that. But I recently talked to some other, architectural videographers, and they approach it where even if they're doing that, they'll just charge hourly. And they'll say, well, if we're going to shoot for a half a day and we're going to get 20 or 30 clips, it's probably going to take me 15 to 20 hours of editing to put all that together and everything in post-production. And so I'm going to charge you $100 an hour. And you can expect 1,500 to $2,000 for that post-production on the video side of things. So that's another approach. And, I'm going to keep kind of experimenting. Each client's a little bit different in terms of what they want to see and what they like and what they're looking for. So it's always a moving target in that way, especially if they want like a produced video. Obviously, that's a heck of a lot more work. Like you said, you're doing, music selection, you're doing audio editing, you're doing sweetening and all of that kind of stuff. You're doing transitions, you're building storylines. You might have interviews that you're going through and you're cutting those and you're making a story from that. So it can really be a lot more. And then if they just want B-roll clips on top of that, like I'm probably just going to give that to you for a very small price, right? It's just like an add-on of something we already did. We already produced it. Everything's here. The main meat and potatoes is the finished video. So it's a little different for every client.
Yeah, I think the finished videos tend to run at the low end, the really low end, 1,000 a minute, and for something decent with interviews and like you say, music, voiceovers, all that, run $2,000-3,000 a minute, a produced minute for something that's only going to be seen on a screen. it's not going to be projected in a theater. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they might still use it as like a link in a proposal or something, or some way to show more about like what they're doing. But it's certainly not as diverse of usage as your photos could be, right? You could put them on billboards, you could put it on the side of a bus, you can put it in a magazine, you can put it in all these different places where videos can't necessarily exist.
That's great. Thank you. And you use Premiere.
I do. Yeah, I'm Adobe. I'm in that world,
Yeah.
which everybody can know. It's difficult. I would love to take some time to learn DaVinci because it seems awesome.
It is.
But I don't know who's got the time. I don't have the time.
Yeah,
I'm trying
exactly.
to
Well, if you decide
just pay the bills.
if you decide to give it a try, I've got some great resources. So that's what I use.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, maybe if I got some downtime coming up in the next couple months, I might hit you up, Barry, and get some of those resources.
One thing I wanted to mention, Kyle, and this came up in Sterling's too, is I think people watching this are going to be surprised at just how much lighting goes into these shots that don't look like they're lit.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, may run into this too when we show up on set, and we've got cases full of lights, and our clients are thinking that we're just going to show up with a camera, and they're surprised when when the 7-foot umbrella comes out, or the 8-foot scrim or something like that. And so I appreciate you explaining the just the extent to which some of these spaces have to be lit, because I think that there's kind of a misunderstanding about how architecture gets lit, or at least how it gets photographed. And I think some of that comes from, I blame the real estate photographers online on YouTube for that. But personally, I have that's a sore spot for me, but because you can't light everything with a speed light. But anyway, thank you for that extremely useful information. Walking us through those layers was huge. There's such a lot of good information there that I think people are going to be playing that back over and over again. So, anybody other questions that anybody's got for Kyle before we jump into the next segment here?
Well, quickly, I like to know a little bit more about Raya Pro, because I don't use any plugins like that.
Okay. Yeah, Raya Pro is awesome. I'll jump back into Photoshop here. So basically this is a panel of tools, right? So Instamask basically gives you masks based on luminosity. You can also key in on like luminosity for color channels, which is interesting. I don't use it very often, but primarily this is the main thing that I'm using. The next thing that I'm using is this here, filters and finish. I don't really use the reduced noise, but sometimes, a light vignette is nice, clean chromatic aberration, manual vignette, sharp no edges, frequency separation. These are all great just tools that you can click on and it'll do it all automatically for you, bringing up the layers that you need so you don't have to build it out every single time. Most of these other ones I don't really use too much. Color Center, you can do some interesting stuff with this. And again, it's just, I haven't gotten to play it around too much. But I use a lot of this for like landscape photography that I do, just personal work, to bring it all back in. But it's just a nice suite of tools that always exists here. Before I started doing more Lightroom work, right? Like if you're in Lightroom like this and you select all your layers, you can right click, edit, open as layers in Photoshop, and it brings them all in as a stack into one file, which is super helpful. Prior to me doing that, I was opening all my layers in like this, and then you can come up to this Raya Pro and hit stack, and it'll essentially do the same thing. It'll take all your open files and just stack them into one layer. And then you can do alignment or blending or anything from there. So Raya Pro 6 is awesome. They might have a newer one. I haven't checked. The creator of this, I think his name is Jimmy McIntyre. Good guy. He's got a lot of resources online. I mean, other folks use, I think it's Lumenzia, and there might be one or two other kind of panels like this that allow you to do quick and easy luminosity and selections like that. But this is just what I've been using for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years or something like that. So.
Thanks for listening to AIAP Show and Tell. Subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any new episodes. Today's broadcast is copyrighted by the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers.